G'day, welcome back to Uneducated Entrepreneurs. I'm Pete.
I'm Dan, and tonight because we're recording at night, we have got our guest, the lovely Jess, as I whack my mic. Say hi, Jess.
Hi.
So for those that don't know, this is Pete's lovely wife, also what do you call it?
Co-owner.
Co-director?
She's the director of Avas Support, but she also...
Essentially.
Do you want to explain what your role is within the organisation, Jess, and what you do?
According to our website and our team, I am our systems designer, but being an owner, you put your hand in many buckets, I think.
Yep, that sounds good. Lovely.
That does sound a little bit right. What does a systems designer mean?
The systems designer, I think I look at the organisation and I map out what our business needs are for our systems. So what I do is I look at the people involved, the resources that we have, and the tools that we have out at our disposal, or maybe tools that we need to bring in, and I work out the most efficient way to reach our purpose.
Yeah, so
there you go.
So Jess and I are very much yin and yang. I'm a big picture kind of guy. Like I've said, I think numerous times where I said, hey, this is only going to take us 2 steps to do. Whereas Jess is like, hang on a second, Peter, maybe 25 steps before we can get to that place. And I'm like, let's just go. And we end up in a terrible place sometimes.
And yet we are here sitting both in black.
Is a plan that really, as I was saying before we got interrupted by Lewis, tell us a bit about yourself, Jess. How you met Pete and how you put up with Pete's entrepreneurial ways.
What's it like being married to an entrepreneur?
Yeah, we added that one in there.
I don't think we have enough time for that.
Give us your elevator pitch of how you deal with this.
Look, I'll probably just say that I have a background in art. The most useful degree there is out there.
Definitely.
And we met at church while I was doing the art degree, and I was also managing part of the kids ministry there. So my start in systems began there because it was just something naturally that I started doing.
Nice.
Building the foundations there. And I think Pete would testify to this, that I've always implemented some form of system, whether to our finances or our time, or tried to. And then through, I had experience being a support worker, and I think Pete and I, that's when Pete started the business, when we were getting a lot of demand for Pete's time.
How did you get into support working?
Of course, you've always got on my jobs, Peter. Ever since I met you. So I think when Peter came to me and it was like, okay, I need you in the business now, that's when I stepped in and I looked at everything. I was like, okay, we need systems here. We need some organization, because that's just naturally what I do. I'm a systems thinker. I learnt critical thinking from my art degree, so I can look at something objectively and I can pull something out and say, does this add value? Or I put it back in and it says, yes, that does add value. And I think that's part of, it's helped me to be where I am today. I mean, critical thinking can be a big weakness sometimes, but it can also be a strength, especially in this field. I've been able to do.
Well, when you don't have critical thinking, it's a big weakness for a lot of entrepreneurs who are willing to get things started, but may not have that critical thinking to go, actually, there's more steps involved with this, or there's actually a journey that you have to take, which is something that you're very, very good at. Sometimes it's hard, though, for entrepreneurs to have somebody in their life like that, because sometimes it can feel like, no, I just want to go and do this thing, and then the people that are the critical thinkers are like, wait a minute, have you thought about this yet? And they sort of pull you back, and it can feel pretty hard sometimes, but it's the best thing to have a sustainable business.
I think there's entrepreneurs that are both can be systems thinker or they're the big thinker. So businesses can come about from either. It's just different ways of happening. I think with systems thinker, there's always someone in their life that's the opposite of them, and it helps bring the balance, the yin and yang.
Yeah. So, So now, sort of, say you get into it, I guess, as you were saying with the systems, it takes, and people were saying, it takes a lot of people with critical thinking to move a business forward. How did you how did you implement the systems with the business that you're in?
Yeah, so coming in to what Peter had done, we had minimal things done, which were fine, but with my history working for another company and seeing their double up of work and the stress of every role in that company, doing paper copies and then digital copies, and the risk of losing information on paper. And I just saw that because with systems you have to think of big picture down to the minute details, because you can see out in nature that ecosystems are all different minute parts working together for the survival of species. You've got predators and whatnot. So I started looking at big picture. Would paper systems be beneficial to us down the line? Does it actually help us now? Does it help us in the future? And the answer was no, because we don't have the information when we need it. It's all in the hands of the person that has that piece of paper. So I just started in the company. Really, I had to address the most important systems that needed covering first, because there were risks involved. There were just some organizational stuff that needed to be done and addressed immediately. So I think I started off with just using Adobe Acrobat. And I think just because it's me doing it, I had to just do the minimal system or tool, and then from there we can build on it. As we grow, we can invest more of our income into systems and tools that will help us grow to that national level.
Yeah, there you go. So, like, when you're putting these systems together, obviously you started very basic. But sort of, what programs would you say that you sort of start? Obviously, Acrobat, you started with that. Were there any other ones that you use? And then, do you still use those programs now, or have you moved on to a different sort of platform or database or whatever you want to call it?
So that first one was Adobe Acrobat, and we had a rostering app that I brought in called ShiftCare for our NDIS industry that we have. And I think from there, the next need was to help bring organization around recruitment. What I looked at then was what we already had in our pocket. That's really big to me. I like to make sure we're utilizing everything that we have to its full capacity before we look for something else. Because I'm also really thrifty and cheap.
Look, that makes for a good business owner. It's like, well, how can I do this as cheap as possible?
Well, I don't want to spend money if I don't have to. You know, there's no point in buying a new hammer when you have a hammer in your tool belt, right? So it's just common sense. So I think with the recruitment stuff is I started looking at, okay, what do we have in our tool belt? And what we actually did have, which most companies have, is Office 365, Microsoft. And just as I was learning, and YouTube is my favorite tool to learn. I'm obsessed with it. I began multiple rabbit holes of learning about Office 365 and how we could use it in our business. And I found Power Automate, which is a Office 365 product that's included in the business package that we have. And that is an automation building tool that we had. And I then also used Microsoft Forms to build our job application form. And what I did is I used Power Automate to connect Microsoft Forms to an Excel sheet. So that when someone filled in a job application form, that would be populated in the Excel sheet. And then I just started to as I researched more and more, I just kept on adding things, adding, until we could go through the whole life cycle of onboarding someone. So that's the same approach that I've applied to everything.
Yeah, right. There you go. So, as you've mentioned, you learnt predominantly through YouTube. Did you do any further studies, or mainly just YouTube, straight up YouTube, and fitting in with us uneducated entrepreneurs? As I stumble over my words, was it just YouTube, or did you do any other?
I have done. I'm
in
in the middle of doing a coding course, which helps me with the Power Automate stuff.
My goodness!
And I do courses here and there with business, maybe like a 1-day course to help that kind of thing side of it.
There you go. All that works, I suppose. Maybe I should look into doing that. My goodness. So, for a systems analysis, data entry, system guru, all of the system stuff, what does a basic day look like for you when you're at work in this business?
It differs whether I'm downstairs in the office or in my room, in my office by myself. When I'm in the office, I start off with those high-need projects that I'm working on, but I also get sidetracked by Jess, we need this now. All the questions to help bring training around the systems that we have in place, or there's needs that come up every day of what we
How do you manage those needs though? Because obviously within a business there are going to need to be things that need to be changed on a regular basis. But then there's also, I understand, the need to have a finished product per se that you can then test, and you can take time and trial it out and figure out issues or different things like that. So how do you manage the difference between people coming to you going, this is an emergency, even though it may not be an emergency? How do you decide what is the important tasks, or how do you divvy up your week, or
So I would first look at the infrastructure of the business and see at what level does that need fit. So first you have the risk management, you have workplace health and safety, those kind of things. And then I would probably place it in the tier of where it fits in the infrastructure. Then I would look at who it involves, or who, if it were created, who would it benefit? And if it's one person, then it's probably way lower down on the scale. But if it's a team, then it gets brought up into priority. And then I think I would be looking at, okay, what is the need? Do we have something that can cover that for now? Or is it something entirely new? Is it just being able to cover by an improvement to an existing system? And then I think also that comes into play is, what am I working on now? Is that more of a priority, or is this more of a priority? So I think all those things come into play.
Can I ask, what is it that you're working on now? Like, can you give us a bit of...
I was literally about
to ask insight.
You said this big project. I'm like, what big project are you working on?
One of the projects that she's working on, which I find really interesting, is one of the systems she's designing is almost like a score for how much attention is required for participants for our facilitators to determine when they're at capacity. So coming up with a number or an actual measurable tool to go, okay, this facilitator who manages particular clients, they can no longer take any more participants on, and we need to find another facilitator to take on that role. But I don't know if that's what she's working on right now.
No.
Like, no, you're so wrong.
But
that's in the pipeline, definitely.
Okay. What's the one you're currently working on then?
Right now, what I'm doing is I've identified that our incident management system is not being effective. So I'm redoing that to make sure that it has been taken care of from start to the end of an incident report's life cycle, to make sure that we're compliant in that. That's what I've been working on. It's been a big project that has needed quite a lot of tweaks in my power automating world. So
Yeah. So what sort of goes into why is there that sort of shortcoming on the incident report? Because I'm just thinking, like, if there's other business owners, like maybe they have a similar issue, like what would be some red flags, and then how would you then address it, and where does it fall off? Like, if you've identified where it falls off,
I think,
like, can you elaborate?
of course. What?
Well,
Jeez,
Dan,
that's my job.
jeez, who do you think I am?
All right then.
So
I deal with this every day, Dan. It's okay.
you poor thing.
Anyway,
That's
keep
okay.
going.
That's fine.
So I think what has happened is, as I've learnt more and more, I've just started to implement projects based on that knowledge level. So this previous incident reporting system was built on that lower skill and knowledge level. But now, having the knowledge and skill that I have now, I've gone, okay, I can actually create this so that there's no gaps in this, and it's been taken care of from start to finish. So what I saw in the last one was that the step between the incident report coming in and the investigation wasn't happening, so that was being missed. And what I did have set up was that once an incident report was submitted, an email would be sent to the what we have as participant facilitators, and what they would do is they would receive an email that says, hey, we've got a new incident report. Click this button now to fill in the incident report investigation. And I would give them an incident report ID to insert in the form. And that works in a lot of companies because they've drilled down on their employees making sure it's done and whatnot. But I think what I want to do for our business is to make sure that's done and tracked, because everything that is tracked can be reported on, and that's what I want. Big picture is for us to notify straight away the gaps and where we can improve. So that's what I've seen.
Having that incident report filled in will then help if sort of like it goes further with, I guess, imagine if there's an incident with a participant, if they decide to take it further, you'll have that there ready to go, and you're not, chasing your tail more or less, trying to find out all of the details.
Well, I think when we're working with vulnerable people as well, there's higher risks for us to miss something. So we have to make sure that we're reporting in the specified times, because it might actually be have to be pushed to do a mandatory reporting to NDIS. So we have those components.
So with obviously the systems you're working on, the incident reporting, are you looking at getting somebody like someone underneath you to, like, I guess, help out with it, or it's not at a level where you have to, like, where you need somebody else to help program and do all the systems properly?
Yeah, I think at one point we'll probably have to bring in either there's consulting companies that you can go to do this for you. But just for the foreseeable future, I think I'm creating these to be able to be replicated at multiple locations. So I think for now our capacity is there's a lot of room for there to grow.
So you don't necessarily, I don't think you necessarily need to have somebody within the organization doing something like this. This is just, it's something that Jess is passionate about and has grown to really enjoy and has a really keen interest on. But there are organizations out there that are able to do this sort of stuff for you, or you're able to do that consultancy based thing. The thing that we're fortunate with is because Jess is so interested in it, we can have a tailor fit one. A lot of, if you're going to get this tailored fitted exterior to within your organization, it actually costs a lot of money. It can be very, very expensive to get what Jess is doing as a personalized implementation within your own business. So, but you can do it, and sometimes it is cheaper to go that way.
I think the benefit of going to another company is that they have the knowledge and experience of a whole team at their disposal. So really everything's on me here for me to learn and find the information out for myself. There are Microsoft certifications I can do, which I plan on doing. So really, the
Mhm.
the limit to what we can do is my knowledge and experience in this. So
Yeah, which isn't obviously limiting you at the moment to a certain
yes,
degree. You're managing, basically.
yes.
Yeah, right. How, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important do you think systems are in any business, small to large? Like, when do you think you need to go from paper to digital or straight away? Like, say somebody was just starting out like a lawn care or like a small business. Like, do you think they need to be getting these systems in place from the get go, or can be put in place like further down the
Look, I
track?
think most people already have systems included because it's not all digital or paper based. That's not necessarily what a system is. It can be maybe a steps of habits that you do to achieve a purpose. You can have tools like physical tools that you might use. You watch McDonald's and all the different tools that they have, their systems. I think it's really just weighing up the cost, the benefit, and the value that you could get out of upgrading or finding other tools. There's a lot of free stuff out there, or maybe stuff that you already have in your tool belt that you could use. But I would just encourage to look, and you may find.
Do you have any suggestions off the top of your head what some of those free systems
I think it
might
depends
be?
on what industry you're in. I wouldn't know what's in the landscaping industry. I know what I've got for us, but yeah.
I'm sure you'd be able to use and develop a tool even in the landscaping industry with Microsoft, the business Microsoft suite
Yeah, no,
that
I think
most people already
Yeah.
have, and because they'll use business Microsoft they might use Excel spreadsheets, or they might use that for or quoting or different things like that. I'm sure that there would be a system that you'd be able to design using something as basic as that.
yeah, no, I think Microsoft is definitely one that you should look at because most people already have it in some capacity. There are Microsoft Forms that are really great. I've been able to create things where we can start off from a form and then a PDF is created, maybe a contract that we've done. So maybe that's creating quotes, or I know there's also integrations with Xero that might be helpful. I know a lot of companies use Xero.
Do you know the difference between? I know a lot of organizations use DocuSign. What's DocuSign under?
DocuSign is like Adobe Sign.
Okay. Is it a separate? Is it like a separate program?
Yes, it's a separate program, and from my memory, it was more expensive than Adobe.
Okay. That's why
But
we went with Adobe.
There you go.
yeah,
You want to find those cheaper ones, definitely.
it pays to shop around.
it does.
Yeah,
But maybe
that's
I can
exactly
include
it.
some videos about Power Automate and those kind of things if people are interested.
If you can
Actually,
send the
yeah, if
link
you
to
can do
Dan.
that. So Jess will send me links. So those links will be down below. What do some of those links incorporate? Like a 30 seconds recap,
So
basically, of your favorite YouTube
what
videos.
I'll include is just some introductory videos about what Microsoft 365 can do for your business, and then Power Automate, because I know a lot of people haven't heard about it. So just maybe a introductory on that.
Well, I haven't, so. Yeah, okay, so intro to the Microsoft and the Automate. Is it Power
Power
Automate?
Automate?
Or Power Automate? Automate. So if you're in the comments, if you have used these before, let us know your experience. But those videos will be down below. We'll link to them. Actually, they might actually be on the screen. So I'll actually do that. They'll be on the screen somewhere on the screen. I couldn't tell you exactly where. There's 3 people here now, so
Dan
it'll
gets
be
confused when there's
it'll
two
probably
of
be
us,
like.
so let's just not even try with
I
3.
kept pointing this way. I kept pointing
It'll
this way,
be in
saying
his
Pete's going to be over
screen.
here. I'm pointing to no one. I'm going to be over here. Like, yeah. It'll be somewhere on the screen about what Microsoft 360. It'll be a big tile. You'll see it. And then Power Automate. Yeah, right. So, what are your plans for the rest of the week in the business?
Well, I'm just trying to chip at that incident report management tool, and I think for the business, we're looking at possible new premise for our officers.
Mm.
So looking into that and
Mhm.
looking at the organization structure again, the chart.
You've been doing that a lot. My goodness. Does that fall under the systems, the organization structure?
So
Is
the
that a systems
organization
thing as
chart,
well?
we're re-looking at that to make some tweaks, so that we can work
Right.
from big picture down to the minute roles that we work towards. I think Peter and I have looked at it, and we've seen we don't want to have unnecessary job roles that aren't contributing to this big picture.
Mm. And it's really
There you go.
that's a pretty big
Right.
thing for us because, I mean, like Jess said very early on in the interview, we're looking at scaling to be nationwide. And so if you've got unnecessary roles within an organization, you're just hemorrhaging money. Like why would you hemorrhage that
Yeah.
money when that money can be used for further growth or further, just a range of different things. What would your goal be within the organization systems wise? Would it be to, because I know we've talked about automation and having it like everything like digitalized and everything happens sort of at the click of a button. Like what would your goal be for the organization for Avas Support, systems wise? Like do you have a plan?
Systems wise, I think I want to be able to allow people to do the best that they can at their job and to succeed in achieving our purpose and goals. That's what they're all for. If they're there not to serve the purpose, then they're just a waste of time and money.
So how I know it can be difficult. So myself, digitally wise, I'm not very good with going from paper format to a digital format. So how are you going about getting people who may not be used to this sort of thing actually using the tools and utilizing what's there?
I think what it is you're just supposed to have a lot of good training, which we probably need to up our game a lot on that. And documentation, I've tried to do things so quickly and responded to the emergencies so much that I probably haven't documented as much because the things are just changing so often because I'm working a little bit here and then a little bit there and emailing and whenever change is made. But documentation and training.
Yeah, like it's for me. I have so much trouble because you can show me something once and I need to see it like 100 times before I get it. Specifically digitally wise, I'm a people person. So when it comes to a system that's a digital system, that's an online system, I have a lot of trouble with sort of engaging. And have you found that particularly with the employees in our company, that how have the employees taken to the systems and how have they adapted or grown? Or have you found that you feel like you need to provide more training or?
I think we've just recently launched Teams company-wide for our whole company,
Mm.
including our support workers.
It'd be weird if we went company wide without going for the whole company.
Well, you can have it just.
Sorry, I'm
You can
just
have it
joking.
just within the admin team. So.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what we had.
Yeah.
Crack.
Because it costs
Jeez.
$8.50 per person for the basic plan. So.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a month.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, so you probably wouldn't look at doing that if you're just starting out on a business. You're only sort of seeing the value in it now, or do you think people should just do it
the
from the
other
get-go?
thing that we would have to have is a
Jenkins.
HR system, which would cost probably about $11 a month and wouldn't cover all our needs. So it's cheaper, and we'll get more value out of it because we can have those custom automations that we've designed.
So how have you found the general employee has taken to systems?
I think you're always going to get people that struggle with the change. I think what we've had, because we also have the two-factor authentication, it's a little tricky getting people started on systems because there's always that shaky start to things. But when we've sat down with them and we've shown them the value of, here are all your forms that you need throughout your whole employee life, here are your documents, here are where you can have support for your role. I think they've seen the value in it, and a lot of them are actually quite excited by the use of it, because in our business we haven't always had that support around our support workers and the resources in their hands when they need them. So at any point that they need, they have access to everything that they need for being an Avas employee.
So you brought up Teams just before. What is Teams?
Teams is a Microsoft tool product in
What
the
are we
Office
using it for?
365. Everything.
So guys, if you need to
Absolutely
use
everything.
anything, get onto Teams.
I think Teams is really the environment where you can provide access to your systems. So it's not you can't usually build everything within Teams. It's more like, okay, I've built this tool over here, now I can just provide the link and make it accessible for the whole team. So that's where it's easy. It's like a directory for everything.
So basically, it sounds like Teams is essentially more or less a link or like a database where everyone can go and be like, I'm meant to be doing this today. These are the steps I need to take for it. And if this comes up, I need to then go to this area.
So within Teams, you can have apps that are really great. You can have Access Exterior from Microsoft, or you can have the Microsoft apps within it. So you can have tasks, you can have Microsoft lists, PowerPoint, Word. You can have Adobe in there. You can have Microsoft lists. You can have, there's so many different things that if I were to list them all, it would just be impossible. There's a chat feature, there's files, storage, there's SharePoint. So I'm a Microsoft nerd now. I'm obsessed with it all.
Yeah. Because I was going to say, like, does not Google have something similar?
But it's not up to par.
Did you look into them? Not up to par, so Microsoft outruns Google.
Yeah, for me it does. Look, and it works from other businesses, Google does, but for our needs, because I'm trying to build really an enterprise solution for the cost of Office 365, this is what we needed.
Yeah. And so you're just essentially finding the tools, as you've said earlier, required that you think, well, this is what we need to do. This is going to, excel our performance right into the future tenfold. You're not, and then you're looking at doing some coding.
With Power Automate, there are templates that you can do with it, but when you start getting into the nitty gritty of it, it requires some coding knowledge. So it's not for everyone to do, but it is great if you want to look into it, because there's YouTube videos out there of how to learn everything, and that's how I've learnt. So it's accessible to everyone.
Yeah. So before we wrap things up, when it came to integrating your systems into your business, I'm just like, words work for me. When it came to integrating the systems, was there any kickbacks, and how did you deal with that? And if there wasn't any, what did you think of any ways that you'd be able to, I guess, overcome any complaints, or like people start, like the older generation being like, why do we need to use this? Because it doesn't make sense. Like, how have you dealt with those issues? / do you have any ideas of how you would deal with it if they did come up?
So there's probably two different types of complaints. There's the complaints where I'm just complaining for the sake of complaining. And then which you can just remind them of the value of that system. And then the second is, okay, there's legitimate need here. I can look into it, and maybe maybe there's more training that I need to provide, or maybe there's a need that's just been identified through this complaint.
Well, the first one specifically, you can say, well, it's your job, so use it. You're paid to do it, so do it.
I feel like that doesn't solve the problems. It's obviously an issue.
Not if they're
in some
complaining.
form or another. And it's like,
not if they're
just
complaining for the sake of complaining. If they're complaining for the sake of complaining, they're like, oh, this is too hard. This is how it used to be, and I want to do it this way. Well, you're like, well, actually, your job is to do this. So you just do it. Like, that's something that's required of you. And if you're not doing it, then you're not performing what you're paid to do.
And look, you're probably going to get that every time there's a change. People genuinely struggle with it, and that's okay. It's just about walking them through it sometimes, providing what they need when they need it, and then keep reminding them of the value.
She's a bit nicer than I'm a bit more tough love.
Nice. Yeah, it's like, be more like Jess. Sit down, have a conversation with them. Pete would not get a job in HR. Simply like you're being.
There's
I wouldn't
times
either,
where
actually.
I may go, okay, Peter, this is one for you to deal with. There's an attitude here that needs to be looked at. So
It's adjusted slightly.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Well, and that's why you've got both of you in charge of the business. You have the nice version.
No, I'm normally pretty nice. I do it in a nice way.
Bully, that's Pete.
Like, oh yes, yeah, okay, I'll do that for you.
I think. Sorry, I'll just add on to that. Is there is a benefit to having both Peter and I in that scenario, because it takes a team to help bring change in. And I think when you start with, you've got the training, you've got the documentation ready, and you release it to your admin team, then they can be informed for helping those people that they're supervising to help manage that change as well. So it's a team effort, changes.
Yeah.
Right. So to briefly recap, we've obviously had Jess on, which has been great. I talked about how she got into systems. Some of the struggles which she hasn't really had.
Oh no, she's had a lot of
That
struggles.
come across. That's my.
Well, I asked if you had any struggles,
Look,
and
that's
you're like,
the
nah,
whole job.
just
You're
sit them down and
solving
tell them
problems.
the value.
And I'm working with my knowledge and experience.
So,
And understand when one little thing goes wrong. So if someone goes, hey, I want to add this to a specific system, there's actually a whole heap of background stuff that has to happen with that. So
my recap did not work. So there's been struggles. So how did you overcome it? I thought I covered that question. I didn't, obviously.
Oh, this is funny as.
Study. She went and learnt more.
Yeah.
So she has had
I
issues.
always have issues.
And she overcame them by research. And this is Jess's job, solving problems. So she's basically an entrepreneur within the business, because that's what entrepreneurs do.
She's
They
solving.
solve
She's kind of she's like the digital entrepreneur, where she's solving digital issues, whereas I'm the people entrepreneur because I solve people issues. So it's kind of an interesting. It's why we're such a good team. Hey, babe.
So cute. Oh my goodness. Wow. So to recap, she has had problems. She's told us a little bit of how she got into systems. She's been very much critical thinker because of her arts degree. I'm hoping I'm hitting all these points because it'd be awkward if I'm not. Main learning is YouTube videos, which will be linked down below.
Formal education.
And they'll also be in the titles, like when they came up. Yeah. As the title says, we are uneducated entrepreneurs.
Jess does have a degree though, so maybe we need to boot around that.
No, but the degree isn't to do with systems.
Yeah, that's true.
It's
and she's
different.
learnt all of her stuff herself. So you can do it, guys. You don't.
She's basically taught herself on YouTube, so you can do that. There is value in in learning on YouTube and systems. And she's been working on a few. If you missed last week, me and Pete talked about pretty much housing, the election, and taxes. The changes that are going to be happening with that. We might do that next week. So me and Pete will go into how the Labor government is now going to affect small businesses. Because by next week, the Labor government will be in for 2 years.
Interesting. All right. Remember to like and subscribe.
That'll be interesting. So that's what we'll be talking about. Yeah. Last week's video will be.
Are you sure?
Over this way. This is. I'm like, is it that way or it's mirrors? All right. So it'll be above Pete's head. Look for Pete's head. Last week's episode will be there because I forgot to do that last week. So last week's will be there. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. Once again, thanks for coming on, Jess. We'll probably get you on again.
Really?
But until next week, guys, you have a great week, and we will see you then.